Welcome everyone. Today we have our another new episode, and this is very important episodes, very popular episode. We will discuss on debate, and this debate is very interesting. This week, actually, we get all of our topic from Professor Rob. A very interesting topic. Uh, some point it controversial. Some point our audience really like this kind of topic. Today's topic: this house believe that fake news control difficulties to this world. Uh, so we have our honorable prime ministers, Mr. Marshall. We have our opposition leader of this parliament, Professor Rob, Professor Donald. Like, what you prefer? Like, it's a open parliament. You prefer government or opposition? Can you unmute, please?
He said earlier he wanted to be on the government side.
Government.
Government. So everyone want to go for government. Professor Rob.
Well, pretty tough to do the opposing one.
Okay, yeah, we know that Professor Rob is a very high quality debater. Like, yes, so he can manage any side, government.
That's
or
right.
oppositions. Yes. So first of all, I would like to give chance Mr. Marshall for he's a minister, prime minister for today's parliament. Please propose his topic and for discussion. You get 10 minutes for your discussion.
Well, thank you, Sharif, and thank you, fellow ministers of our Grand Duchy government. So this little principality that we have here. The premise is before the government is fake news. Fake news is not good for our government and our country, and we would like to look at legislation that would address this. But first, I want to address what is fake news. I know it's been in a lot of people's minds, especially with what's going on in the United States, with what's going on in Ukraine, and what's going around the world. So I would say that fake news is false or misleading information presented as news. That's basically what fake news is. Fake news often has the aim of damaging the reputation of a person or an entity, or making money through advertising revenue. That's another means, by the way. And it's one of the issues that I think our parliament needs to undertake and create a law against, because that is a form of fraud. And so, and I know that the honorable opposition may say that our fraudulent laws might already take that into account, but I believe that in today's news of what we've been talking about with the acquisition by Elon Musk of Twitter, which is not a news outlet, but it is a social media outlet, we should begin to create legislation that will address fake news, addressed both not only through the media, but also through social media accounts as well. So our proposition is that fake news is false or misleading information presented as news as such. And today, maybe part of the argument in the parliament will be about the fact is, well, what is news and where do news outlets go? In our country here, in our little principality, we have laws that are similar to the EU and to the United States, that news organizations are regulated in our country. But what about social media, especially social media that's handled by somebody like Elon Musk from Twitter or Facebook or things like that? So, and as I pointed out, it's not only that it causes the damage of reputation to people or entities or even governments, but it also makes it's also used as a means of making money under false pretenses. So our proposal is that as fake news is dangerous, it is considered, in our opinion, should be enacted as a criminal act to produce that kind of news. Now, I know that it's going to be an argument to say, well, who knows what is fake and who knows what is real, right? Well, I'll give you a classic example of that. If the opposition says to us, well, we don't know what's fake and what's real, it's opinion. Well, opinion is opinion. That's not news. So I'm not suggesting that opinions are news. But when people say 2 + 2 = 3, is that an opinion or is that a fact? or is that a false news or a false fact? So, in my opinion, and the opinion of our government in this legislature, as the prime minister and elected constitutional body by our citizens of this small little duchy of ours, I suggest that we enact laws that prevent people from stating fake news as false information as if it's fact. This is not fact. 2 + 2 = 3 is not a fact. You might consider it an opinion, but it's not a fact. And we know that under mathematics, the laws of mathematics, and I'm sure the honorable opposition is good at math, he knows that 2 + 2 is not equal 3, it does equal 4. Now, I'm not suggesting that all types of fake news are going to be that easy to discern. So we recommend that our parliament puts together a collaborative mission between the opposition and the government to form a committee to determine the set of rules of the road, how to determine what is fake news and what is not, and also a separate committee to look up how do we handle social media when it's shedding so-called news. Is it news or is it only opinion? And if that's the case, if it's opinion, then we should put laws into place which clearly state that social media is not news and that it's only opinionated. And we want our population to understand that, whether it's coming from outside of our duchy, from the United States, or if it's coming from Europe, or if it's coming from other parts of the world, such as India, we want to make sure that in our legislature, we enact laws that protect our population from damage of their reputation, our media reputation, our company reputations, our entire community and society's reputation. We need to protect that, especially in today's day and age when single billionaires, the richest people in the world, can buy a Twitter feed for $44 billion, while in the United States they've only allocated $8 billion for putting in place electronic vehicle charging stations. So that gives you the disproportionate concept of what's going on here, why it's important to our little duchy here to make sure that we legislate properly the terms of what is fake news, how is fake news going to be regulated, and should it be regulated. It is the contention of the government that fake news should be regulated because it can cause, again, I can't reiterate this enough, the aim of fake news is often to damage the reputation, whether it's the reputation of this government or the opposition, which we don't want to have happen. We want a democracy here. We want truth to be, there's an old expression, truth will out. That's what we want. We want the truth to come out, and we don't want fake news and lies to become the standard in our country. Now, if other countries allow to do that, that's their issue. In our country here, in this debate, we're talking about our country and our legislature, and we need to create these capabilities to protect our population, including our opposition, including anybody who wants to run for office, anybody who wants to run a business in our country, anybody who wants to have a quality of life in our country, good educational opportunities in our country. It cuts across all the borders of our country. So fake news, again, is false or misleading information presented as news. And whether it's done through a media outlet that is already regulated by us, or whether it's done through Twitter or Facebook or some other social media outlet that somebody invents and creates, we need to be able to think about how to regulate that. Now, I have no problem with people joining Facebook and putting up their recipes and talking about their children's education and things like that. That's what Facebook is mostly used for in our country. But if somebody starts to use it for political purposes, that's fine, but they can't issue fake news. That's our opinion of the government, and that's our stance. And with that regard, I think, again, the government here is proposing that we collaborate across the aisle. We extend our hand across the aisle to the loyal opposition who has been in government before and has headed this, has shared my chair as prime minister. And we ask them to join forces to form these committees that we can then regulate both two aspects of this. What constitutes a news media outlet? What is the definition of news? And by the same token, we want to legislate the manipulation of information so that they can't produce false information. So, Sharif, thank you for being the moderator in this important discussion in our government. And I, as the leader of the government, I've rested my first case. I do want to make one caveat, and that is in about half an hour, I will be switching my clothing to get into my vehicle to go to a very important meeting with the head of security. So at about 11:45, I'll be in my car, but I'll be online and representing the government.
Thank you. Thank you, Honorable Prime Minister, for today's Parliament. Thank you, Professor Paul, for joining today's session. Professor Rob, he will join in your team. So I think you are not alone. So you can compete in this Parliament, and you have enough people to support you. Now I request our opposition leader of the Parliament, Professor Rob.
Well, I'm not sure I'm going to need the support this time. So the question before us is the House believes that fake news control is difficult in today's world. So the opposition agrees with the House that fake news is bad. It agrees with the House that fake news needs to be regulated. And it agrees with the House, apparently, that fake news is easy to regulate because it's easy to tell whether news is fake or not. 2 + 1 does not equal 4. 2 + 2 does not equal 3. Absolutely, we agree. You can just simply look at fake news and figure out that it's fake. It's easy to do. I mean, we could watch Russia regulating fake news very aggressively at the moment. China regulates fake news very aggressively at the moment. The question isn't whether fake news regulation is easy or not. The question really now comes down into what is fake news? Is political discourse fake news? Is a comment about somebody's clothing that's unflattering? Is that fake news? But regulating fake news is easy. You just pass a law that says, hey, anybody that says something that we consider fake news goes to jail or goes to prison. Russia's doing that pretty aggressively at the moment. It showcases just how easy it is. China, if you speak out against that government, you'll be deported or put in jail. You had a female tennis player speak out against a senior political member, and she vanished. But it was easy to regulate what the government determined was fake news, that the regulator was not guilty, and that the female tennis player was obviously, at least according to the government, lying. So regulation's easy. It's we watch it happening all the time. We were up in arms when social media attempted to regulate fake news. They put in place algorithms, they put in place policies, and people were regularly banned for saying something that Twitter or Facebook thought was fake news. Incredibly easy. I mean, don't get me wrong, trying to write the algorithms and stuff did require a certain amount of effort, but it just simply required a clear idea of what fake news was, as the Prime Minister indicated. Super easy. You just have to look at it and you can see that it's fake news. And if you just look at it and see that it's fake news, you can regulate it just as easily as Russia does, just as easily as China does, just as easily as some of the developed nations do. It just comes down into the government taking a hard position on what is fake and what isn't. Now, there could be a whole different discussion on that aspect of it, but that's not before this governing body today. What's before this governing body today is whether fake news control is difficult or not. It's not difficult. It's surprisingly easy. In fact, that might actually be the problem, that fake news is too easy to regulate, because if the news is hostile to the government, they're likely to call it fake and take draconian methods to remove the people that are doing it. So not only do I disagree that fake news is hard to do, it may be too easy to do, as we're seeing it go on in China and Russia at the moment. The problem is not that it's too hard, it's that it's too easy. And so the opposition absolutely disagrees with what should have been the Prime Minister's position, that fake news is difficult to control in today's world. It's too easy to control in today's world, and it's stifling free speech. It's creating autocratic governments, and it's putting the people on their back foot, unable to compete with governments that are abusing and misusing their power. So we believe that fake news is too easy to regulate, and that's what we need to address. Otherwise, people in power, like the prime minister, will abuse their power and abuse the people, and we will no longer have a democracy. The opposition rests.
Thank you. Thank you, Honorable Opposition Leader of the Parliament. Now I request our Honorable Minister from the government side, Minister of Media and Journalism, Professor Donald.
Well, I thought that was an interesting talk that Rob just gave, because he managed to completely avoid the question about what news was fake and not fake or not. If the simply because the government is regulating news doesn't necessarily mean that the government is only banning fake news. To me, right now, apparently what's going on in Russia especially is that they're filtering out any news that makes it look like the Ukrainians have any justification whatsoever for defending their country. The Russians are being told that Ukraine was taken over by a Nazi regime, and that they're going into Ukraine for the benefit of the Ukrainians. In fact, the Ukrainian military was shocked when they got in there, and they were actually fighting against them, because they thought they were going to be greeted as liberators and people were going to welcome them. They were stopping their tanks and asking people for directions, and the Ukrainians were saying, "Yeah, see that pier over there? You just drive straight off that pier to the lake." And it wasn't really working out for the Russians, but so the question gets to be, like, of what news is fake and what news isn't fake is such an incredibly difficult question, that if we put that at the core of what we're trying to do, it's incredibly difficult. Because you look at something like science, where we like science to be cut and dry. So we say to ourselves, yes, there's facts, scientific facts, and then there's opinions. But if you really study philosophy of science, you find that one of the key aspects of science is what's called fallibilism. And fallibilism is the idea that no matter how good our measurement instruments are, how perfect our theories are, that someday in the future we might invent better measuring instruments and come up with better theories and change how it is that we look at things. In other words, even in science, facts are not concrete things that can never possibly change. When you get to something like a current event, like the war in Ukraine, or any number of current events, what's going on with economies right now, what's going on with supply chains, what's going on with all these things that are being spun in one way by one person and spun in a different way by other people. Oftentimes these are legitimate interpretations. We have people on the show that come on that are very strong about interpreting everything that winds up happening in terms of rational choice economics. And so any problem that happens that we see is due to government intervention and the problems with government. And if we only had free markets, all these problems would be solved. Well, there's a whole body of respected economists who felt that way. So we can't just say what you're saying is wrong. The fact of the matter is a lot of things that we consider to be facts are opinions. And ultimately, how we understand the world is stories about the world. We understand the world based on, things happen, and we have to have something in ourselves that explains it. Why is this happening? How did this happen? We need to have these explanations. And so the media fills it in for us. They tell us why these things happen. And to the extent that we trust the media, we believe, okay, that's fine. Now I know why it happened. I'm going to get back to my business of life. Or you integrate it into, because I know that why it happened, I'm going to do things a little differently. But so ultimately, we're just subject to all these little teeny little explanations of things. And there's really no possible way of controlling them. I mean, you can try and completely eliminate them the way Russia's done, but that's not working for them because Ukraine is now actually going into Russia and it's starting to attack some military installations in Russia. And because of that, Russians are actually having to flee their villages, and that information is getting out and getting spread through Russia. So the attempts to control information they work for a while, but they don't work for the long term. And the only thing that we can do that can help is to educate people and to teach people ways that they can evaluate the information that they get themselves. Because as a government, it's so difficult to do. I agree that I sort of need to agree with my boss, the prime minister, and say that yes, legislation can be helpful to some degree, so we don't wind up like that America with something like Fox News, which is blatantly creating misinformation for the absolute purpose of causing problems in the country. But we can stem it. We can stem the bleeding, but we can't completely control it at all. So there.
Thank you. Now I request Deputy Leader from the opposition side, Professor Paul.
Sorry, is it my turn?
Yes.
I didn't catch you. Yeah. Okay. So thank you, everybody. And I think a big part of fake news has not been covered yet. And somebody is producing this news. And one of the big things on social media is the algorithms that can amplify the fake news. I mean, if one person posts fake news and there's no influence, and that just dies and it doesn't cause any damage. But what we're seeing is fake news being weaponized. It's not really to hurt an individual, or shame an individual or expose them or whatever. It's to elect a president in the country, for example. A far right-wing sort of fanatic, if you like. It gives power to, it allows people to buy and run, for example, armies of trolls, armies of bots, to then distribute widespread fake news, and then it gets traction and it causes harm to society. So one of the most important things in social media is that we need to get rid of the so-called trolls. We need to get rid of so-called bots. We need human authentication. So, when social media first started up, I was very concerned about the anonymity, people being the anonymous aspect. You could have individuals create multiple accounts, for example, one individual, one human creating multiple accounts. One of the accounts on Twitter could spread some fake news, and then it could be amplified by 100 or thousands of other, fake personages, right? So we need a way in social media to have human authentication and get rid of all of the non-human, the robot accounts. And this is, look at the Twitter feed of Trump when he was on Twitter. 40-50% of so-called followers were actually robots and machines, and then they would amplify whatever he would say, and that would drown out anybody else's voices. So we need a way to authenticate each account in any of these social media platforms and say, okay, this is a human. And then we need a way of making sure that that human only has one account. Okay, one voice, one account, and then you have sort of a public square of discussion. And then it doesn't allow the fake news to be amplified like it does right now and bring down governments and elect presidents, etc. So that's a key point. Now, when in the early days of the internet, I thought, okay, you shouldn't even be able to have an assumed persona. When you go on social media, most of us, if we're using Twitter or Facebook, we go on as ourselves. We have our name there, and that holds us somewhat accountable to what we say and spread and do on social media. Whereas if we have, a fake name or an assumed name, it gives us as an individual, we think we have more leeway to post complete utter nonsense and to troll people, and do other things like that. Now, people would argue, well, okay, I want to use my Twitter or Facebook at work in lunchtime, or I want to be able to say things and not, lose my job over them. I want to be able to speak freely. So I can see the need and interest maybe for anonymous accounts, but there's no reason for robot accounts, for trolling accounts, which are weaponized. We know the influence of the Russian government on the U.S. elections was enormous, and possibly was enough to push it over to change the result of the election. The other thing that this is not a new thing, the idea of fake news. It's been around forever, right? We have the idea of false flag operations. In times of war, truth is the first thing that is lost, and there's false operations. It's just that the ability to be amplified now via social media, etc., is much more powerful. And you can get exponential growth of the news, and the fake news seems to grow much faster than the truthful news. And the reason is because of headlines, and it just seems more exciting, and some people take glee in spreading more and more fake news, and it has real harm, and it has real consequences to society, to the functioning of society, to the continuance of democracy, etc. In climate change, we've had tremendous amounts of fake news being spread by corporations, who didn't want their products, fossil fuels, to lose favor amongst people. So it was profit motive driven to continue the fake ideas about climate change not being a problem, not existing, etc., for many years. And once that got into sort of people's psyches, it's very hard to get it out there. It's very hard to. There's a guy who has written a number of books on this and studies it, John Cook, and he talks about, it was mentioned about the education of the public so that they don't fall for fake news. Well, John Cook has used the term inoculation. Okay, so we need to inoculate the public so that the fake virus that starts, of information does not spread, right? It's cut off, and it does not spread exponentially. So if there's people, some crazy thing comes across their feed, they're not going to share it. You read it and share it. They're going to think, okay, well, this doesn't make sense. This isn't true. I'm not going to share it or post it somewhere. And then the fake news, the virus, does not spread virally or exponentially. So fake news is coming from somewhere, right? So it's hard to talk about, it's hard to say, to find all of the fake news, all of the 1 + 2 = 4, all of those fake things. It's hard to find them all, but it's a lot easier to go after the sources. who's posting this and who's saying this, and we have to ensure that this cannot be amplified and that this can be tied to a human authenticated source. And then if we address that, then that's a huge part of the problem. So Elon Musk's takeover of Twitter was brought up, and I'd like to just say that I have mixed feelings about this right now. I'm billionaires are owning platforms. Look at Murdoch's, what he owns in media. Look at Zuckerberg's Facebook. So Musk's Twitter. I mean, it's not much different. One thing that Musk is saying is that he wants to have human authentication for Twitter and get rid of robots and bots and stuff. And if he manages to do that, that will go a long way, I think, to having a decent platform. He also wants the source code for Twitter to be open source, so people can actually see the algorithms that amplify certain tweets and certain characters. He also, we need, in order to have a public marketplace that is fair, it's vital that you're not able to buy followers, which is essentially able to be done on any of these social media platforms. So if you look at some of the accounts of, some of the most famous scientists in climate change, for example, they might have a couple thousand followers, or probably the most famous, Michael Mann and a few others, they might have 100,000 followers. If you look at some crazy person spreading all of this crazy news, they might have millions of followers. And why? Because they have financial resources or a company backing them, or, the Russian disinformation group, just paying to amplify them. And they basically buy, they have, first of all, they have maybe 40 or 50% of their followers are robots and trolls. And then people see, oh, this person has a lot of people following them. So, it becomes easier to build up followers. And it's paid for, and it's done covertly and subversively, and nothing good comes of it. And that's what we really have to hit. It's not the news per se itself, it's the sources of the news and the individual elements of which should be all humans, but it's not all humans on these social networks.
If you're muted.
Thank you, Professor Paul, for your excellent analysis. We have our expert, Mr. Walker from UK. He will be our debate analyst. After the debate, he will analyze a whole debate. You know that a British parliamentary debate format is very popular around the world. In futures, because British parliamentary debate need at least 8 speakers, 2 or 3 different analysts. So that's why we are just waiting for some other speaker, then we can arrange British parliamentary format in the futures. Now I request Professor Rob, in your construction speech, you had 5 minutes. You can utilize it. And for your rebuttal, you have another 3 minutes. So 8 minutes you have time, but it's up to you. Professor Rob.
Yeah, probably won't take that much time. So the Prime Minister laid out my case very well. 2 plus 2 does not equal 3. 2 plus 1 does not equal 4. Fake news is easy to determine. All it takes is somebody with the willingness to step up and say what's fake or what isn't. That leads to ease of control. Russia and China are showcasing it's easy to control what they determine is fake news. Once you cross the line and make the easy determination that fake news is anything that you disagree with, then it's very easy to regulate. Anybody that disagrees with you goes to jail. Now, Donald did point out that Russia's having trouble with the allegedly fake news getting through to its people, and certainly aggressively going around their controls. But the large displays of opposition that were occurring in Russia before the war are virtually gone now. And the polls inside Russia showcase of course, those are probably questionable as well, showcase that that the Russian people are fully behind the war in Ukraine. Russia's controlled the dialectic. They've gotten rid of the fake news or anything that the Russian government doesn't agree with. China does the same thing. Anything the Chinese government doesn't agree with, either the speaker or the news element, just goes away by fiat. It's incredibly easy to do. If you speak out against a Florida governor's program and you're the most powerful and largest company in your state, you can't stand in that way. The governor of Florida abused Disney for daring to speak their mind and what the governor considered to be lies and fake news, and so he was able to punish Disney directly within a matter of days, removing something that had been in place for decades and benefited the state of Florida. So incredibly easy to go in and regulate and to stop what the governor felt was fake news. So the opposition's belief is that fake news, it's not too difficult to regulate. It's too easy to regulate. We see it happening all over the world. People that have opposing views are put in jail. They might be poisoned. They might be killed. They're certainly discredited, and the end result is the supposed fake news is eliminated. And it's just sad to notice that perhaps, at least for the good of the planet and for the good of accuracy, the fake news may actually not be fake. But that's not what's before us today. What's before us is whether or not fake news control is difficult or not. And the fact of the matter is controlling fake news is incredibly easy. All you have to do is take a hard position on what fake news is or isn't, and put penalties in place to punish anybody that speaks out against your position on fake news. It's simply as easy as it was done in Florida. You get a favorable Congress if you're if you're a supposed democracy to support your position, and you can get it done you can pass broad laws that affect taxing regions, something that was thought to be very difficult and that would require a great deal of process and certainly dialogue. But you can bypass all of that and just punish the powerful company for daring to speak out against what you put forward as the truth, and it was just by fiat. It was easy. In any case, as we get down to it, the laws and structures of government give government a substantial amount of power and control. That power and control can be used for good or bad. And all that takes is for government to decide what is good or bad. And in the case of news, we've seen that it's incredibly easy for a government to decide what is good or bad, and then they certainly have the power to enforce that judgment against the people that are speaking out in positions against them. And it just isn't speech; it's written word. In the United States, we've got politicians that are popping up and saying they ought to burn all the books that contain anything that you disagree with, including math books for some screwy reason. And it gets fantastic support, and books are being pulled out of libraries incredibly easily. So in the end, it's not that fake news control is difficult. It's that it's way too easy and leads to abuses of power, and people that should have a voice and books that should remain in libraries from being removed and people's voices being silenced and put in prison. So the opposition firmly believes that the problem isn't that fake news control is difficult. That fake news control is far too easy, particularly when there's no hard and fast rule on what fake news is, and governments can ban anything that they view as against their best interest as fake and use those excessive powers to drive through their message and control the population. So we believe that fake news control is far too easy. We agree with Donald, actually, that educating the population would be a good move, but recognize that would also make the control of fake news more difficult, because the population would speak out against the government, calling something that wasn't fake. So educating that population would make it vastly harder to regulate what the government said was fake news. And we believe absolutely we should educate our population. We should allow them to more critically think. We should allow them to speak out. We should make it harder to regulate what the government says is fake news, because it isn't always fake. The opposition rests.
Thank you, Honorable Opposition Leader of this Parliament. We are observing our Honorable Prime Minister already. He is in action. He's trying to controlling the fake news in his area. Maybe he's visiting any media or other sponsor company. Honorable Prime Minister, are you with me, Mr. Marshall?
Yes, I'm with you. Can you hear me?
Yes. So, are you taking action for this fake news? You are going for action.
So I find it as the head of the government and as a duly elected constitutional government that the opposition is trying to make political points and actually implementing the very issues that he's talking about. He didn't listen to what I said in the beginning. He twisted my words and tried to make it into fake news, which I find quite astonishing, but he's entitled to his opinion. Nobody's going to throw him in jail. We're not Russians. We're not Chinese. Our government isn't that way. But his aspersions that we are shows you and why we are in government and why he is not. It shows you why we've been elected by the people of this country to run the government and why he's in the opposition. Now, he's entitled to his opinion, and opinion is not fact. That's okay. And if he suggests that fake news is too easy to do, I suggest that it's not. And in a democracy, it's hard to do because what we're suggesting is that what we asked for in my opening remarks was that we come together as a government and create a broad coalition to address these issues. I'm not suggesting, and never did, although the aspersion was made upon the government that we did, we're not asperging to lock anybody up, and we're not suggesting that we act like the Russians or the Chinese. On the contrary, this is a democracy. And so we need to treat this information and the question is, what is fiction and what is fact? Anybody can write a fiction novel and publish it in our country, not like the United States where they're banning books, which is quite ironic. But if in his country, he wants to, on one hand, he wants to have his cake and eat it. He wants to be able to say, the government is acting like the Russians and the Chinese, and they're going to lock us up. That's for political points. We're not going to do that. We'll never do that. And if he gets elected and he wants to do that, then we'll see real dictatorship in play. But in my opinion, and in the opinion of this government, we need an opportunity to, yes, educate people, as my colleague and in the government stated, we need education. But by the same token, it's very important for people and our constituents and our citizens to understand that this is not easy. If he thinks it's that easy, then that means he's actually on the side of the Russians and the Chinese to lock people up. It's not easy. That's not our goal. Our goal is not to lock our citizens up. Our goal is to create information that leads to prosperity, peace, and safety. And the safety is not locking people up. Safety means that we're educating people, giving them the opportunity to choose between different parties in a democracy, not a dictatorship. Because what he's describing is dictatorship. Now, if you, sorry about that, driving, I hit a pothole here. So what happened? My wife screamed. One of the things that we have here in our problem is that in this government, we need to be able to not become like what happened during World War II. We do not need the definition of propaganda. Propaganda exists, but what we need facts, and we need to distinguish facts from fiction. And we suggest that there must be a way to delineate that. We may never get to that ultimately, but we should make an effort by creating a broad coalition of committees to explore this in a democratic fashion and make sure that we get deal with the issue that could cause the fake news and the dissimulation of people trying to, for either like the bots that my colleague described or the opposition described. We don't need those bots. We don't need that. What we need is we need people to be people, and we need citizens to act responsibly. And we don't want to lock anybody up unless they've committed a crime under a democratic leadership, a democratic regime, not under a Russian or Chinese regime. But if the opposition is indicating that's what we're doing, he's doing it for political points. That's okay. He's entitled. It's a free country, free speech, no problem. But let's the citizenry know, and this is why we got elected and he didn't, that we speak and try to make it to the best efforts of the citizens, and not like what's happening in Russia. So the government rests its case, and I got to make sure I pay attention to my drive.
Thank you. Thank you, Honorable Prime Minister, for your constructive speech. Now we have our expert from the media from UK, Mr. Walker Media. I want to give him chance for total debate analysis. Mr. Walker. Mr. Walker.
Once again, it's an honor to be here, and thank you for allowing me. And it's nice to see so many talented and experts here. I'm just a simple filmmaker. I work in the documentary space around the world and cover all sorts of stuff. There's conflict and so forth. I think one of the things is, and it's obviously just as a last discussion, that this is a political hot potato. It is a political tool. But before I sort of just talk a couple of minutes, I think the word fake news is wrong term, and it trivializes it. It makes it a little bit of a mockery that it's not serious. It's almost like a fake Gucci bag, we'll buy, it's okay, or things like that. It is a wrong term, and it doesn't show the seriousness of what this is. And to me, it's really news to deceive. That's what it does. It's there by governments, by whoever, to deceive people in a very deliberate and calculated way. And I think we should not trivialize it by calling it fake news, because fake gives it a soft touch, and it's a very, very serious issue. So the way I look at it is that it is used by all sides to create propaganda. And I'm sorry, but propaganda is what it is. And to say that it's not is wrong. It's trying to sort of wash ourselves of our sins and be pious Western nations. And it's not true. One of the things that I found is that what is happening is that those that are in the media, and particularly, let's say I'm from Britain, we have BBC and you have CNN. There are these eminent presenters and researchers and out there who are doing these interviews and presenting things. When you get to know some of these people and when you understand what's really going on, they knowingly are actually reporting facts that are not facts really, but facts in their mind or in what they want to say. So what brings me to it all is it's truth. Everybody is lying. Why can't we go back to telling the truth? And that might help a lot of the problems we've got. Second, the West tends to say it's pure and it's news and its way it works is very, very good and it's ethical. I don't think it is. I mean, look, the British government shut down RT. Well, there's freedom of speech and democracy for you. That in this Western society, we're not allowed to hear another's view, and they, in a sense, use this to pump their own news to deceive. They will continuously pump you, brainwash you with stuff which I'm a filmmaker. I've been in war zones. I worked in all of these countries. We know the reality is somewhat different. There are hidden agendas by governments of why things are happening, whether they're wars or political campaigns or so forth, or why they're doing it. And I think the whole issue is about truth. Most people don't get all their information from Twitter or Instagram or Facebook. There's a lot of the world still gets its news from radios and mainstream broadcasters, and they are controlled by the government. So, we have to look at the thing in a wider scale and look in the mirror sometimes, as we as in the West, who we are, what we're trying to do, and start to push for the truth. And I guess, as you said, Rob, Mr. Musk might do something good or might not do something. We don't know. He wants to take algorithms away. He wants identification, and it might help. But that's not the way everybody gets their news. Vast people around the world don't have access to this sort of technology. They're still watching BBC, CNN, or Channel 4. And channels like BBC, and I can only talk about the British thing, are highly, highly politicized. I would take a lot of the BBC's news, not the rest of it, as news to deceive. And it is a worrying threat that quality journalists are lying, quality broadcasters are lying for reasons which they know better than we do. And the power of media is in a few hands who, without the support of the government, would not work, and vice versa. And I guess most of the news to deceive is government driven in some way or other. It's phone calls to the heads of the broadcasters. We want this week. We want that this week. And Britain over the last years has seen such bullshit from the BBC and lies and incredible deception that you never I'm an old guy now and I'm born and bred in this country, have I seen such stuff come out of the BBC. So I think we need truth in the media.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Walker. This is really interesting debate. I believe that our audience will learn a lot about from this debate, and especially, yes, fake news is a really big problem. We have many media which is controlled by corporations or by the government. And yes, they create many good example. They create a lot of good example. Actually, World Talent Eco Forum, we are very small. We are growing. We are just growing. But one thing I can ensure that World Talent Economy Forum, the speaker, those who join, they voluntarily support World Talent Economy Forum. We are organizing the whole event. We do not go for any sponsorship. We do not go for any kind of financial assistance to any governments, any corporations, any NGO or anywhere. We run by our own relationship. And from the day one, I believe in people. I think Professor Rob, actually our second day speakers. At that time, actually, no one want to join in World Talent Economy Forum. This is our 530 episode. But what we achieve when we organize this kind of session, this kind of things, ultimately people are joining. Actually, we have many people because I grow in a place, I grow in a very small country, it's Bangladesh. So I know there are many untouched populations in the grassroots level. They do not know, I'm very honest with you. BBC or CNN or the Netflix cannot influence them. I'm sorry. They have different cultures. We collaborate with India. India has many big corporations. I think Google CEO from India, Microsoft CEO from India, Twitter CEO from India. But India has villages, 15 villages in Uttar Pradesh. I do not think that they have very strong influence of this kind of mainstream and powerful media, but they trust World Talent Economy Forum. So I believe the mainstream media, if you believe in people and if you support people and if you have a good people, knowledgeable people, and really trustworthy people like today's session, people naturally support you. People naturally want to make a relationship with you. And most important thing is that I believe that this world is very big. Many population actually untouched. Big corporations actually go for big branding, big advertisement, and the big promotion in the capital city. But what about the rural area? What about the grassroots level area? Talib Rafael, our honorable board of advisor, he joined from Jordan, but his internet connections always not good. This is even we are living in industry 4s. We are talking about many interesting things. So still, I believe that we have to do a lot of work for human progressions. And I believe we have a lot of good people like today's speakers, those who can do better work for human progressions. Yes, money is important, but money is not everything. Trust me, these 2 years I just learned with people contributions, we can do many things. And these 2 years, different government from developing worlds, from Malaysia, Singapore, around the world, government representative, uh, central bank, policymaker institutions, different grassroots level peoples, They collaborate with us, universities. This is because of our transparency. I'm not trying to selling myself. I just trying to share all of the interesting contributions of World Talent Economy Forum, and it's not only my hard work. It's all of our people hard work. They contribute a lot for World Talent Economy Forum. Uh, so that's why I believe that we can do more. We are focusing just one thing from the developing world I just learned, uh, because some point I criticize my government many times. Even today I criticize my government. How you develop your policy, what you are doing, it's not good for our youth community. Especially in Asia, if you see 50-60% actually youth Asia Pacific. So what the political people actually doing, uh, uh, and media actually promoting, it's actually create impact. Yes, we have many good media partner right now. So we always criticize, but good point is that they are learning what actually our speakers, Professor Rob, Professor Donald, Professor Paul, Mr. Marshall, Mr. Walker, what you are sharing, they are learning. And one thing, if we can fix from the developing world, and I believe that developed world can be the best partner for that. If we can introduce modern science, engineering, and technology, we can do more focus on research. I think we can solve maximum problem. But we invest a lot of money for wire. We invest a lot of money for this fake news and the media thing. And trust me, people are very smart. They can understand. They never trust. If you go for heavily promoting these wrong informations, people understand. uh, People are really really smart. So that's why we put this name talent economy. Talent is number one. So the people are talents, they can contribute, and especially through this debating, open dialogue, research, we can change a lot. And I want more of your contributions, because your contribution will change human lives. We are taking a lot of action, very visible activities we are working right now beside this dialogue, because what we are learning we are implementing. So we are happy to open any kind of projects, any kind of initiative. Big corporation, definitely they are important, we are open for them. But any kind of small initiative we want to welcome, because we have many small people and they need our help. They need our support. So if we can help them, I'm sure we can change huge amount of people life. And most important thing is that for our speakers, I want to ensure. I do not know how much like money business we can make, but one thing I'm sure, with this World Talent Economy Forum contributions, you will be part of the history. Uh, I we get a lot of collaboration, lot of support from the people, and I believe with this present strategy, we will achieve more. And especially the debating communities, how, as a debater, because I am from debating community, I am observing today's debate. I just want to say that it's very high quality debate. If if in the real parliament this kind of debate happens, it create more value to the parliament, it create more values to the people. Maybe all of our speakers in the real parliament, we are inviting many parliament member from different countries to join in our debate. We will organize more debate with parliament speakers and our speakers from World Talent Economy Forum. And I request all of our audience, you are our strength. You always support World Talent Economy Forum. Please share our content as much as possible. It's 100% free. Uh, we do not have any advertisement. We do not have anything. Just share our content. What you want to do, how you want to utilize, you can develop case study, you can do research. We are publishing book. You can do research work with us. We have very high quality researcher in our team. They can help you. And all of our board of advisor, they are our reviewer for this journal, so they can help us a lot, especially for our youth. So thank you, Mr. Walker, Professor Paul, Mr. Marshall, Professor Rob, and Professor Donald for your continuous support for World Talent Economy Forum. Thank you, bye-bye, and take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Bye.
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 Okay, she wants.